Hello, hello, hello. This is Kimberly and Miranda with Tipsy Mystics. We decided to go live today for no reason at all other than just to keep ourselves, excited about life.
Every now and then you gotta put on makeup.
Oh yeah. And I wear shoes when I do this just because it feels more comfortable to me, even though
I was using my feet a lot today, and they're very tired, so I'm literally sitting cross-legged. Shoeless.
Well, that's what gurus do anyway.
That's what we do.
That's what you do. What are you drinking? You said you made a cocktail. What did you make?
So I was not sure this was going to be delicious, but it turned out pretty good. I have tequila, watermelon kombucha, obviously don't want to let the fans down, and some coconut LaCroix, and it's pretty delightful and summery, because it's summer weather here in Philly. It's like 88 today. Toasty.
Shit, it's warmer there than it is here in Los Angeles. I don't know. I didn't venture outside past 7 this morning, but it's in the 70s. I actually am taking my first foray into canned wine. So I am drinking this Prophecy wine, and I'm pretty impressed. It was pretty good. So anyway, I'm drinking it again. It's been a very 5D week for us, and so we entitled this episode From the Light Grid because we've been spending more time on that grid than we had on the 3D grid. So I just wanted to say real quickly, just to give people a visual about what we're talking about with the light grid.
Please do.
Thank you. Flora, who is a beautiful entity that I channel from Andromeda, wanted us to kind of visualize the Earth as a globe with all of us people walking around on it and stuff like that, interacting. And then above that, our more informed selves also have created a grid that lies just around that globe, and it would be from a higher perspective as far as more love, as far as more sharing, as far as inclusion. And this grid that we here on Earth tend to call the light grid is formed by the collective. The collective has imagined this grid into existence. So this is what you would call your new Earth, right? And it's available to anyone, and all that you need to do is to focus on it, to interact with people and yourself from that state of love, and then you make yourself available to that light grid. So
I think what kind of helps me imagine myself there and interacting with people is that everybody else also has a higher aspect of themselves on this plane. So even if you're seeing them on the earth plane, right, you are able to interact with them, to talk with their higher self. Your higher self can speak with their higher self, right? So the light grid you can speak with the light grid them.
Yes.
All the time. And so I think anytime you have an interaction with someone or you're having an experience, maybe not a pleasant one, who knows, you can always sort of pause and focus on this higher aspect of yourself, put yourself there and just go from there and think, if I were my higher self, if I were talking to their higher self, what would I say? Or how would I feel about this experience? Or, what would I want to happen next if I were my higher self, right? If I were my higher self, what would I want to happen next?
Right. Very good. Thank you. And that's exactly it. So, we each have selves on all of these planes having experiences. It's just a matter of where you're focusing at the time with respect to your world. So with that said, we got the whole light grid thing going. And apparently there's a party going on.
Obviously. We knew this.
We knew this, right? This is not a secret, but the party is, and the word around town, and the light grid, is that there's an awful lot of people who are ready to make that shift. And it could be you, it could be your family members, somebody, right? Somebody that you know who's starting to show a little bit of a different behavior as far as like maybe more joyous, maybe more whimsical, like laughing more peaceful.
I think for me, I've seen a lot of people who are more inquisitive.
Yes, asking questions, willing to accept alternate explanations. Mm-hmm. Right? And those of us who are in the consciously awakened community, meaning that we're doing this consciously, focusing on it, making it our life purpose to experience our awakening and share it with people, right? We kind of have a little bit of a reputation on the light grid. And that reputation is, okay, these people know both of these planes pretty well. Now, one they're just starting to remember again, right? So, I mean, we went through all of the forgetfulness that other people did too. But also, we generally, most of us had some difficult periods in our life where we actually got to feel that hard, dense, physical stuff, right? And so we're basically going to be the hosts. We're going to be the ones that will be there for those other people when they start being inquisitive, like you said, when they start wondering, how come your life is so different? How come you don't worry about things like other people do and everything seems to work out for you like over and over? And we'll be the ones, and anybody's invited, right? Anybody who wants to be the one to share their experience with these people from a perspective of love. We're hanging up the streamers.
That's right. Blowing up
the balloons, baby. Right?
Yeah. Popping the popcorn, whatever it is, you know? Getting snacks together. Mixing up the punch.
The Chex Mix. Mm-hmm. Right? So
it's a very 1950s party, apparently.
Oh yeah. With the Harvest Gold kitchen.
Yes, I like it. Yeah, or maybe a mint green kitchen,
or avocado.
Yes, avocado.
Right, the avocado kitchen. They did have a turquoise too. That's the kitchen I had, was the turquoise one. So from this grid, Miranda, what is different for you this week?
Whew. Well, geez, a lot more allowing, a lot more acceptance, a lot more peace and unburdening. So if you listen to the podcast, last podcast I was talking about how like just immense bundles of money, just thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of dollars were leaving my bank account within like about a week. Right? It became like a joke. So I was making assumptions, as you do. Okay, so I'm trusting the universe, and this is how it's going to work out, right? Like, I just have to wait till this period of time, and then if it's perfect timing, then I'll get this other money that I'm waiting for, and it'll come in at the right amount of time, and I'm like, you know, making up this scenario in my head. But as my team has always told me, don't even try that. Like, you're just limiting yourself when you try and say what normal way it's going to come in, right? Like, allow it to be something totally different. And I have to say, yesterday, within about 20 minutes, it came in so many different ways. I got a check from someone that I would have never expected to get that amount of money from, like for no reason, out of nowhere. And as my team told me today, they were like, that was out of love. That wasn't out of them having fear for you or anything else. That was purely out of love. A couple weeks ago, I allowed somebody else to help me, right? I allowed help from somebody else, and they got so much out of it that I added that sort of energy to the universe. So I got even more help from somebody else, right? So when you allow one person to help you, you're really making that choice to allow lots of people to help you, right? So abundance comes in so many different ways, not just money, although, you know, that's kind of what we're looking at right now on the earth plane, but it comes in so many different ways. So I got help from someone I would have never expected, and then I found out a couple of minutes later that like one of the invoices I have was totally wrong. So when I asked them to go back and look at it, because I wasn't sure where this came from, they were like, oh, whoops, my bad. Just made up $3,000. So, in about 20 minutes, like it totally changed from an anxious situation, like I need perfect timing, to like, I totally have a buffer. I have plenty of time to, you know, see what else comes up, right? If not even what the thing that I thought I was going to get money from could be something totally different. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so I'm just in that, like, just unburdened, just so much freedom. And then I've been waiting for these contractors to, like, finish up. And not, like,
finally
wonder if they're going to come to my house every morning, right? So I have this, like, I have to get up, I have to do this, I can't go out, I can't do things that I want to do because I'm waiting for people or they're here. And finally today they came and they, like, got all the crap and all the garbage from my house and all the reno stuff, and it's just, like, gone.
So it's finally done.
Yeah.
I mean this iteration.
Yeah, I mean, I have to wait for the final inspection, but like we're solid. Like I have freedom of time. Like next week I can wake up whenever I want. I can get up, I can go for a hike, I can sleep in, I can work, I can do whatever I want. There's nobody coming. I don't have to like have somebody in my space if I don't want them to be. Like it's just a level of freedom that, I mean, in one way it's freedom of my physical form, but you know, every fucking thing's symbolic, and it's like on so many levels, you know, I feel free, I feel unburdened. It's not too shabby.
Not too shabby. And you were talking about how in the beginning, when you first got this house, you were so excited. Nothing's happening. I want everything to happen. I want this thing to be built. When are they going to start with this? And then you go through this period where there's all of these people in your house, basically every day for 5 months, pretty much, right? And then now we hear you at the end of this where you're like, oh my gosh, I have my freedom back. So this is a great example of the lessons, I'll put that in quotes always, right, that we give ourselves just to see how far we've grown, and are we recognizing how we're expanding during any situation. So you couldn't have this unburdened feeling of freedom that you have right now unless you had all those damn plumbers in your house, right, for all this time. It wasn't against your will, but it kind of was. Right? Yeah, you had that creative tension.
Exactly. Yeah, it was this like pull and let go sort of feeling of like, I need you here. I'm so glad you're doing this, but get the hell out. Get the fuck out. Every day I'd be like, oh, sounds like they're cleaning up. They're about to roll out, right? I get my space back. And it's really funny, like, thinking back on last year when I live alone. So I wasn't allowed to see another human being. And it was, like, so hard to not be able to see people and interact with people. Mm-hmm. And then here I am. Who would have thought that I would be excited again to not have people every damn day, right? Who would have thought after last year of all that isolation that I would again be so happy to have this, and also symbolically, like, a lot of the quarantine restrictions in Pennsylvania are being lifted, right? So, like, almost all of them.
Yeah. So we're basically getting back to whatever, it's a new normal. It's not the normal that we were at beforehand.
But a level of freedom that's so much more refreshing than we would have been able to feel without a year plus of, all those restrictions. You know what I mean? It just feels so much, if you're into it, it feels really fucking amazing. And if you're kind of not into it, it's really scary. I know a lot of people who I was shocked when, the CDC said, oh, you don't have to wear masks anymore if you're vaccinated. And they're like, oh, this is bad news. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
How is it bad news?
How is it bad news? Because the people who aren't wearing their masks aren't vaccinated, they're anti-vaxxers, they're blah, 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 right? They're, like, still looking at it with fear. And it's like, wow, you're still afraid. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, but it was a very shocking thing for me that they were like, this is bad news. I was like, how? But, that's their choice. I see it as like, yes, so many of us are like, freedom, I feel good. And if you're still in that fear mindset, it's terrifying. It's even more fear.
It is. Now, see, that's
just
where,
a cycle.
And that's where people start saying, okay, the earth is going to divide, right? There's all sorts of word about, and people take it literally instead of figuratively, but the world is going to divide into the world that destroys itself and the world that moves on to have everything work out well, which is our light grid, which is where, those of us who are listening to this are heading, at least right now. And it's interesting how you were talking about assumptions, because assumptions have been coming up a lot. I noticed that on the change from the 3D plane to the 5D plane, or the light grid, we have to look at every single thing that we assume is true, and we have to question it. So I'm pretty good about that. I question my associations a lot. But one association I never questioned until today, until a nice guide had to put it in a YouTube comment, was my assumptions about assumptions.
Oh, tell me more.
Right? Now, you just made an assumption, right? That money was going to come to you after hard work or after this or and
time or whatever.
Exactly.
In a way that I could see with my eyes and my ego could expect, right?
Exactly. Mental processing.
Make sense of, yeah.
Exactly. Now, that assumption was basically obviously limiting you, but you were looking in that direction and assuming that was the way.
Yep.
Right?
That's it. There's no other way. Where else is it going to come from?
Exactly. And when you let's see if I can say this without messing it up, because now we're getting to these concepts that aren't so easy to voice in words anymore.
And I do want to just stop you for a second and relay what happened to me. So after this, roughly 30 minutes after all of this happened, I was checking out at the store, and I made a joke to the guy checking me out. And he deadass looks at me and goes, "You make too many assumptions." And I was like, and I almost like peed myself laughing. I was like, thanks guys. Yeah, I get it. You're right.
Yeah.
Touche.
Exactly. And so even if you're on the 3D thing checking out in a hardware store or whatever, that 5D version of that person knows exactly what to say or what to do to help to move you along. And that's one of the ways you can tell when you're like, there was a very potent message for me in that statement. Right?
Yeah.
So the making of assumptions about anything is going to go. So it just opens up a whole damn Pandora's box of like Wonderland shit. Like, all right, I can't really depend on anything now being what I thought it was. Right? It could be something completely different than I thought it was. And that turns us into Alice in Wonderland shit, right? Where everything is changing, right? Depending on the people that are imagining it at that time. So, you got a collective, and each collective is built from a bunch of individuals. And each of those individuals is having their experience, and they're sending out their energies, they're sending out their assumptions, right? They're sending out their great ideas and their shitty ideas and all of their ideas, and it bundles up together with the rest of everybody else's, and it forms a collective energy.
Okay.
Right? So I don't know exactly where I was going to go with this because it's going to go around in a circle before it comes back. But we're drawing on each other for all of this stuff, and we're creating these worlds as we go, right?
Yes.
There isn't just like, okay, we're aiming over here, right? We're creating it based on all the individual and collective energies involved. So I'm going to tell you quickly about a message I got on YouTube about a video that I did in which the person said, your information is inaccurate. Basically, I'll break it down.
They said that in the comment?
Yes, he said, you're spreading false information, right? Now, this is a video. It's old. And my ego was like, what the hell are you talking about? And then I'm like, no. If you're on this light grid you say you're on, then there's a message in there for you. There's a lesson in there for you. It's not random. It never is, right? So look at the message and see what there is for you. Well, after I got over my little hissy fit and, I'm always pulling up universal wisdom. What are you talking about? I started to sit down and think about possibilities, right? Now, someone's writing something as a comment on any video at any time. They're writing it from their viewpoint, right? And to them, what they're writing is true.
Right. That's not their truth.
It's right. And so when someone reads or listens to a video or whatever they do and they're like, that is definitely not my truth, then they call you wrong, right? And so here was a person who's never met me and said, your information is wrong. And I'm like, well, are we even on the same timeline? Do we even have the same truth, right? It's because the immediate thing was me to just go straight to, oh shit, I'm wrong. I got to find out what I did wrong. Like that person knows more than me. So then after I get over that pissiness, my guides are sitting me down. They're like, why can't you just have fun with this? Like, what do you mean fun? Someone just told me my information was wrong. I just distributed it to the world, to thousands of people, right? I gave them false information. And they're like, but it was real for you, right? You distributed it with the best of intentions to the best of your ability, and it was true for you. And one person tells you that it's wrong, and you doubt yourself.
Yeah.
So now there's just the decision of to whether it still resonates with me. Because, I mean, anyone's going to know that they're not the same person that they were 2 or 3 or 4 years ago when they did or said anything, right? So expect their
4 years ago, Lord.
Yeah. And yesterday, it's a completely different person for
Right.
sure. Anyway, I just found it interesting that you're tested also on this light grid, right? You're going to test yourself with your own judgment calls. Do you trust yourself on this level too? Are there people on the light grid that know more than you? Well, sure, there's always going to be someone that has a broader perspective, but would that person be contacting you out of love or out of, right? You're doing something wrong. Your truth is wrong. They're going to contact you out of love and compassion. Anyway, I'm going to take the video down, I think, because
It's not your truth anymore?
you know what? It doesn't resonate with me anymore. And maybe that's the whole reason I just spent 4 minutes explaining it, in that it just, when I look at it and I feel the energy of it again, maybe I'm just going to say, you know what? That's not my audience anymore.
Yeah. That was you telling you this isn't right. This isn't right in your world anymore.
Yeah. And so
And you threw a hissy fit.
I do a total hissy
about
fit.
you kindly pointing out a video of which you have too many to go through ever and like really decipher them. So he kindly pointed that out for you. The other aspect of you kindly pointed, well, maybe didn't kindly point it out.
It was pretty kind. It was pretty kind. It really was. But it also, and thank you for that, because you're right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it takes a little soundboard like this to get even the other hidden lessons or nuances of any situation that you can glean. The more nuances you can pull out of something and knock out of the park, the more you raise your frequency so that you can start having some damn fun at this party.
Heck yeah. So this reminds me of something I wanted to talk about. So I was painting today, right? And I'm painting white.
A wall, right?
Well, I was painting ceiling today.
Okay.
And I'm painting white on white, right? So it's already primed. Some of it already has white ceiling paint, but it has some patches. So I got to do another coat. So I'm literally putting white on white. And why it reminds me of what you were just talking about is because it is a lot easier when you have contrast, right? Mm-hmm. When you can see, oh, I'm putting a new color on top of this white, I see exactly where my lines are, right? It's really easy to know where I painted and where I didn't, right? Mm-hmm. And why it reminds me of what you were just saying is because when we have these things come up, right, of this is wrong, you're wrong, this is false, that is contrast for us. And that helps us choose, right? That helps us focus on something, right, and choose. Yes. And the biggest issue for me painting without contrast is I have to, if you don't have this contrast, you have to have a memory. I have to remember where I already painted. And that is really difficult, right?
So you probably painted some places twice.
Absolutely. Wasted my, and I'm sure I've missed a couple spots, right? Mm-hmm. So contrast really makes life a lot easier and helps us learn and helps us move forward, right? We're not just stuck in the same place painting over the same fucking spot multiple times. So contrast really helps us make these choices, right? You're wrong. Am I? Right? It makes you stop and go, am I? You know what? That doesn't resonate with me. Boom. I move forward, right? I'm not stuck there anymore. I investigated it and I moved forward. So just actually like be really grateful and happy when you have contrast in your life. When somebody says something to you or gives you an alternate view, then you can say, you know what? Do I actually believe that? Or I don't, And then you make that choice and you can, propel forward into a totally different timeline, right? It's very exponential when we have contrast. Otherwise, it takes you a lot longer, you know what I mean, if you don't have it, to really learn about yourself.
Yeah. And the contrast comes on often in, from places you don't expect it, like some strange guy or girl, I don't know, on YouTube, right? Something that comes out so that it's like, I definitely didn't plan that. Well, of course you did, right? Of course you did. You gave yourself a little fun. And there is actually a silver lining to this. Yes, I am going to review my video because it was a gentle nudge to maybe check and see if it still resonates. But there was also some information that for me to look up and to research regarding the subject that like lit up a gigantic fire of, oh my God, we can have some serious wild fun here going down this creational path, right? And it included the Knights Templar, which I've been studying since I was like 10. Oh. And all of these things that I had forgotten about long before Dan Brown and his awesome books came out and stuff like that. That is the sexiest part of history for me. And that one little comment brought all of that back to me. And I'm like, oh shit, I forgot all about this stuff. This is fun. We're going to France.
Fuck yes. And sometimes it happens the other way. You and I have been helping somebody out with a project of hers, and I gave her some feedback on a site that she created on her Indiegogo site. And she came back with me and she's like, you know what, I really appreciate you taking the time and giving me that. It really made me review it and think about it and investigate if I wanted to go this way. And she's like, but you know what? I decided I like what I have and I published it. I'm going forward, but I appreciate you looking at it. And I was like, you know what? I was that contrast for her. Mm-hmm. It gave her the opportunity to see it in a new perspective. And she's like, all in. She's like, yep, this is what I mean. This is how I want to speak my voice, right? And it probably gave her a little more self-awareness. But she was like, I'm all in. This is me. So sometimes you get that contrast and you're like, nope, this is it. I'm solid. I'm good.
It helps you define who you are at this particular moment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to say like 5 sentences and then I just said yes. Because we're getting to be poets. I'm definitely seeing how the words are going to go away, right? And I've never been a good poet, and in all of my timelines, I've never been a good poet. Although I do hang around with Leonardo da Vinci a lot. He does help a lot with the drawing and stuff. Oh, by the way, and he did travel.
Was he a poet?
He was in everything, but he did travel to...
Fucking course.
Of course, right? He did travel to the castle that we're going to in France, that Knights Templar castle with the Holy Grail and all that good stuff. He made a pilgrimage there. So if he's going, we're going. But I forgot what I was going to say again. Oh, I want to talk to you about cicadas.
Yes. So I didn't know about this, but it's a popular story apparently in the East Coast, and I found out about it yesterday. So I live in Philadelphia, and apparently Brood X is about to come out in full force. So Brood
X,
right? Brood 10.
That's a very sexy name.
It is. Right? It's a powerful name. So there are a number. I've read all about cicadas. So there's a number of cicadas that are generational. Brood X is a 17-year generational cicada. So
it's the Gen X of cicadas.
It's the Gen X of cicadas.
Badasses, yeah.
That's
true.
So So what happens with, and then there's annual cicadas, right? It's not like you don't have cicadas some years. Annual cicadas that they come out when they're mature, right? They just come out whenever they're mature, and they do their thing and they mate and whatever. But these generational, they call them broods, right? They all have different names about where they show up. They, no matter how mature they are, they will wait for everyone else to mature. And then they all come out of the ground together.
A cicada party.
Is this not so symbolic
of
what we're doing, right? Like, as a collective, I might be maturing, you might be maturing and evolving, and we might be able to hang out in the light grid a little bit more than everyone else, but we're going to wait till everybody can come, and then we'll get the party really started, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then they come up, and they, I mean, it's really freaking gross, actually. They, tunnel out of the ground. They find a tree, right? They crawl up a tree. They come out of their, shed their exoskeleton, and then they have their wings, right?
Nothing symbolic there either, right? Nothing.
Not at all. And apparently they're really bad flyers, and everyone just eats them.
What?
But
who eats them?
Everything. People eat them. Oh yeah, apparently it's like a delicacy. Like when they come out, it's but this is another thing about them. There are so many of them. They come out in huge masses that they're this like hive mind. Like you can lose a good amount of them, right? But they have so many that they'll still survive and create new ones. But anyway, and then they come out and scream. For like 6 fucking weeks straight. They scream, they have sex, the women lay their eggs, then they die. Live in the ground.
The women die?
They all die. Everybody dies.
They all die. Well, as long as they had sex.
17 years, they live in the ground, right? Like feeding on tree sap. And they come out and they scream, their sex scream. Their horny scream, and then they have sex, and then they die. Lay their eggs, have sex, and then they die. And then the next generation comes up. Isn't that insane? And so there are millions of them. Maybe. And they come up where trees are. And guess who has a lot of fucking trees?
And guess who's a little ray of sunshine, too? So if any cicada is going to want to be around someone on Earth, they're coming to your yard.
Yeah, I mean, guys, get ready, because in the podcast in the next couple weeks, they're supposed to be, like, popping up within the next week here. It's going to be real loud.
Oh, cool.
There's going to be some sex screams. All night, every night, all day. It's going to be real loud in my yard.
Oh my goodness. Well, we always talk about like everything that we have in our physical environment. It was somebody's idea, right? Including cicadas. Now, yes. I think it's amazing all of the different animals that they have. My favorite still being the Greenland shark.
That's
Do you know about
animal?
The Greenland shark?
No, tell me more.
So now we're going to go into this brief story about the Greenland shark, knowing that there is some brilliant mind out there, some consciousness that was like, I am going to invent the weirdest fucking animal ever on Earth. Watch me do it, right? So that person invented the Greenland shark. Greenland sharks live under the ice, obviously, in the north. Up in the north, under the Greenland ice.
By Greenland, yeah.
Yes. They live for 200 years. Now, they live alone, meaning that they don't travel together with anyone.
Okay.
I know, it's sad. It gets worse, trust me. And they live under the ice alone for 200 years. Now, every once in a while, they might meet someone of the opposite sex and do their thing and go on, but not very often. They are so alone, and this consciousness who designed these things designed them so perfect symbolically that they actually have parasites, one on each eye, that live with them.
Oh, well,
So-
then they're not alone.
These parasites are only found on the eyes of Greenland sharks.
All right.
And so not only does the shark, he's blind now, he's wandering around under the ice for 200 years with one parasite hanging off of each eye as a friend.
Okay.
Now, if that isn't the most messed up, brilliant invention of an animal ever, I can't think of one.
Nature, go home, you're drunk.
Seriously, some of the stuff,
Some of
it's just,
it,
it's
I
amazing.
love watching those like videos and stuff online on TV of just the weirdest things found in nature. They generally do happen to come like under the sea. There's a lot of like weird shit. There's a lot of weird
Yeah.
shit under the sea.
Yeah. Well, water is an insulator, and symbolically it's an insulator, meaning that it, you know, those, a lot of things that go under there are away from the eyes of man, meaning that they're not going to be destroyed so easily, at least in the old world thinking. So now that we have more conscious divers and submarines that go deeper, we're finding, I mean, the anglerfish, dude, he's got a light hanging in front of his head.
So
I mean,
cool.
right?
So cool.
So next time around, I'm going to be one of those damn animal designers. I'm going to put my initials on it or something so
Absolutely.
everybody can know who it is, the KD dragon or something. We need some dragons. We definitely need dragons.
Well, I mean, they were there. You just can't see them yet.
I know,
They'll
but
be.
no, I mean, we need dragons roaming the plains.
Well, yes, yeah.
That's
Soon.
what we need.
Soon,
Okay.
when people can accept them, they'll be here.
Yeah. Now, unicorns, that'll be nothing. That'll be like, pfft, you know, you go to a unicorn petting zoo.
Truly, I 100% think that there are people on this planet who thinks unicorns are real, like, legit.
I totally do.
Yeah, no, but, like, not even someone who's like, I'm awake. Like, legitimately, they think they're here.
Oh, like part of the flora and fauna that's walking around on Earth?
Absolutely. There's people
Oh.
who truly believe them. So we already have that, like, in our corner, you know, adding energy to it.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that stuff because honestly, you know, we've got a lot of really cool animals on this planet, but it would be really way more fun to have a dinosaur crossing once in a while,
Oh,
right?
I mean,
They stay within the lines, right? Not walking over people or anything, but I don't know. I think it would be fun.
I went on a date with this guy, and I forget why I talked about it, but I said something about a warhol, which is a real fucking animal, right? It's like up in the
A
Antarctic.
narwhal?
Yeah, narwhal, yes.
Okay.
A narwhal,
Not Andy
right?
Warhol.
Tequila.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Anyway, so I said something about the narwhal, which is a real animal, and he legit was like, "That's not real. That was just in the Elf movie." And I was like,
I love that movie.
and I was
I
like,
thought the same thing as he did, though. I had to look it up.
it's like, no, they're actually real.
But wait,
But they're real.
wait.
But he
wait.
like legit didn't believe me.
But wait, now let's go back again because this is exactly the same thing I did with my YouTube guy,
Yeah.
right? They're real in our world, but if he looked up an encyclopedia and he didn't believe in
Yeah,
them,
he
maybe
might not
that
have seen
narwhal
them.
wouldn't be there, right?
I mean, I legit afterwards, I was like, no, this has to be real. Maybe we did it on the date. Maybe I had to look it up and be like, dude, it's here.
Well, it's in yours, yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, I just think that that's amazing that these are the judgment calls that
Yeah.
we're going to have to start making when we're on this
Just because you can't see it with your eyes doesn't mean
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not there.
as Flora says, just because the water is cloudy doesn't mean the fish aren't there.
Right.
Right? So we've got a lot of unseen audience going on right now. There's a lot of things, and I'm starting to see more of them, lots more lights, lots more flashes of light. When my eyes close, I'm in someone else's life an awful lot now. Like I'm seeing other scenes, and some of them are not human, which is very exciting to me. Right?
That sounds fun. I want more of that.
Yeah.
I just got same old me.
Well, we are, Flora has kind of mapped out that path to working on seeing more of those things. And so I'll be publishing that, and hopefully I'm going to bring her here next time and let her talk at us a little bit. But
shout at us.
Shout at us. She's very noisy. Okay, so when we're talking about the light grid again, I would say yesterday for me was the most far away from 3D I've ever been. Like the highest frequency I've ever been in this body. It was yesterday. And I went to Starbucks twice, in fact. Right? I went there in the morning and I sat out.
Do you buy things every time you
points.
go to Starbucks? Oh.
Yeah, I do, because I think it's important to support them, right? So I buy coffee and I sat outside and I'm watching things and I'm looking at everyone from a peaceful perspective, and I'm seeing it reflected back in my environment. Like on a very busy Los Angeles intersection, like the cars aren't honking at each other and nobody's about to run into anybody else, and people are just kind of walking around being their thing. And that's all well and good. I go home, I do some stuff, and later on I'm like, I'm going back to a Starbucks. So I went to a different one. And I just sat there, and the people started to talk to me from that 5D level. They're finally recognizing that I'm recognizing where I am. And so they're speaking to me, like you said earlier, higher self to higher self. Now, sometimes I'm, still down in the, oh, my coffee's getting cold phase, but up there, they always give you the chance to go deeper into the conversation than just what the words say. And I told you yesterday, there was one lady that just stopped right in front of me, and she said, she just held up her hands and she looked around. She says, see, isn't this nice?
I mean.
And I'm like, yeah, it's perfect. And she goes, I know, I can tell by your face. And then she just walked away.
I love it.
Right? And so this was a chance that we both had to recognize that, okay, we're both on a higher level of awareness for at least this moment, and we can speak on that level consciously with each other. And it's really easy when you're practicing at home, right? But when you go out with people, like you did with the guy you were checking out with at the store, you don't always expect them to be speaking from that level. We have to be open for that.
Yeah, but it was funny because it was, I have to say, it was like he had said it to me so many times, right? That's the way he said it. Like I keep telling you, right? Mm-hmm. Which is the first time, clearly this is the first time I met Mike. He also told me his name because I should review him. He gave me here, why don't you review me online?
You should. Give him 5 stars.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Giving Mike 5 stars for sure. But
for moving you along in your expansion.
Yeah, for a good reminder and a good laugh.
The assumption part. The assumption part is the killer, man. So I think that where we are now, preparing for this party, is way more fun than I ever thought it would be. Like to me, life was always about purpose. Like, okay, now here I am to experience my awakening, and I'm going to be this. Okay, I'll be an illustrator, whatever, but I really want to put my voice out to the world and help them wake up, right? And that has a really big responsibility if you're going to cast your voice out to the world, whether there's one person watching or 1 million. Once you cast it out, it's out there and it continues to create.
Yeah.
And so everything that you say keeps going. And these little helpers that we have here, Mike and the YouTube guy, are here to help us give us that contrast, right? Of, all right, you're talking on more than one level. You're not just talking to 3D people who are scrolling through feeds all the time. You're talking to people who are listening on other levels now.
Right.
And you're responsible for communicating on those other levels with integrity.
Yeah. And you know what? You have been that person to someone else even when you didn't know it.
Yeah.
Like Mike
wouldn't be showing up.
Mike didn't know he was a guide. Mike didn't know he was like sending a message from, both our higher selves. We're having a conversation. He didn't know that. And, you do that every day. You say things to people, you do stuff, you trigger them, whatever. You show them contrast, right? All the time. Your higher self pops in and says something or does something, and it helps somebody else out. So I've always kicked myself a lot for the things that I've done. And I know I've talked about this before, but it's always perfect. It's always perfect. Even if it's wrong in that, wrong.
That's an assumption.
Right? In that moment, it's not wrong, actually, right? Even it's from your ego, smaller self thinks it is.
Because we're making it up as we go along.
Exactly.
So how can you really be wrong, right?
Because you don't know what's happening next.
You don't know what's happening next. And that being open to what could happen and still trusting that you're in a good world at the same time, that's a big jump for a lot of humans, right? That's probably one of the biggest jumps, is that they're like, all right, I'm going to open my mind to these new things, to these new concepts, to maybe I am immortal, right? So if I am, and I open myself up, anything could happen. And we're so used to looking at bad things happening that we forget about all the good, fun shit that could happen. So the focusing on the good part of it, even if it's a lesson that comes in about making assumptions, right? Or about an article that you wrote, there's always something good from it, right? You got a good laugh besides reviewing your assumptions.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe that video existed for somebody or a couple of somebodies, and it needed to be out there, right? Somebody needed that.
Yeah.
And nobody needs it anymore, right? So
maybe they've grown past it.
Right.
And it doesn't represent me anymore. So
now it doesn't have to be there.
So basically, when you take something like a video out, you're never really removing it from the timeline that it's on, right? You're basically removing it as a probability for someone to find. That is when shit gets really deep. Like, okay, I put it out there. If someone wanted to look in archives or something, they could find it, right? But those people who are making decisions now are going to have information available to them that isn't from me, that isn't misdirected in my eyes for the way these people are starting to think. Like, it was related to the darkness.
Yeah, it might just not be relevant on this timeline that we're on now, right? Just
that was like my 5 sentences just said, what you said in one sentence. Call it the canned wine syndrome here, but yes.
The Warhol syndrome.
The Warhol syndrome. So tell us what's going on with, we have a couple minutes left. Tell us what's going on with astrology and shit.
Well, this coming week, May 26th, I think it's Wednesday. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. I have no idea days and dates and stuff. These days, I don't know days. It is a full moon lunar eclipse. That's a big fucking deal.
It seems like we have those all the time.
Well, we have full moons every month. We don't have, eclipses every month. But we have a few every year. I think it's a total eclipse. Again, don't quote me on it. But it is a full moon lunar eclipse. Full moons are always endings, right? Culminations. And a lunar eclipse is going to be a big ending, right? A big checkbox. If you choose to, check that box, right? We always say things come up sometimes just for you to be like, oh yeah, I've moved past that. That's not me anymore, right? So it doesn't mean, oh my God, this hard thing is coming up again. It's going to be hard again. It's, no, just be like, oh, yeah, no, not for me. Thanks, bye. So big endings coming up roughly around Wednesday, right? It's, again, days don't really matter. So not necessarily going to see it on Wednesday, any sort of day. Maybe I had a lot of endings this week. So maybe for me, it was today. Or maybe something else comes up. It's in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is the best sign. My brother-in-law bought me a little Sagittarius necklace and I wore it. So, this is coming up around who we trust, right? Do we trust a guru? Do we trust a religion? Do we trust the law, right? Do we trust morality of some such that somebody made up at some point in time in history? Or do we trust our intuition? Do we trust what feels right in this very now, in this moment, right? So, who maybe do you want to end trusting, right? Who do you want to say, you know what? Fuck that moral paradigm that I believed in for so long, right? Screw that religion. Screw that guru. I don't resonate with that guy anymore. That person I follow on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. There's some follower of Are You Awakening who's like, no more Are You Awakening, right?
Oh, but he keeps coming back and watching videos, so he's obviously here to help me. But yes, he's saying she doesn't resonate with me anymore.
Exactly. So maybe it can be that. It could be any sort of belief that you held on really strongly, and you're like, in this now, I'm going to trust this now moment and who I am in this now and what I feel and, what's coming through, right? So have a conversation this Wednesday with your higher self on the light grid. Take a little visit, take a little stroll around the light grid. See who else is there in your light grid neighborhood. Maybe it's someone you didn't know. Right?
Yeah.
So just be open to endings because they bring in the new stuff. They make room for new beliefs.
It is so amazing how much goes. How much ending there is. But it's not, we associate endings here as sad. And all the things I'm ending, I'm totally thrilled they're gone. Right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so much lighter without that burden. Yes. Whether that burden be a belief, whether that burden be an obligation that I finally, got over, or a relationship that's severed or whatever. Thank you. You have room to breathe.
Exactly. Right before I came on this call, had a little chat with the team, and that's exactly what they were like. They're like, chill. Just chill out, man. Just chill out. You don't have that burden anymore. Just feel light. Don't worry about it. You don't have to carry that load anymore.
Cruise under the ice with your 2 parasitic friends and just, I mean, the Greenland Shark didn't look all that upset. He looked okay.
What? Who knows what 200 years is like to him, because time isn't real.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a lot faster today than it was yesterday or a month ago or a year ago. Ooh,
yeah.
I have no idea how we made it to Friday. How we made it to May 21st. No. Lord knows.
I can definitely say on the light grid, the time just doesn't matter. I look at the clock only when I need to and because I'm supposed to do something or be somewhere. Other than that, no idea whether it's dark or light outside, no idea what day it is, no idea anything.
They won't even let me make a to-do list sometimes. Like my pen won't work.
I love it. Just so much fun to have that freedom of I don't know and I trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a good place for us to end. I don't know and I trust. So we are very thrilled to be here. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot easier. The party is getting bigger. I'm seeing more people out when I'm in that state that are interacting with me in a beautiful fashion. Like, okay, now she's here at the party, so let's get started. So until next time, thank you all for listening. We love you very much. We don't know which timeline this one's going to end up on, but we're making it with love and we're sending out with love. So cheers.
Cheers.